take.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Draft. To my right is Frankie. Frankie, how are you doing today? How's the Super Bowl week been for you? Taking it all in. How does it feel?
Doing good, Yeah. I feel like I saw Ryan. There hasn't been as much hype this week. I feel like building up to the game. I feel like I don't know, previous years, there's been just so much more teams talking smack. Radio Row has seemed like it's been pretty I don't know, low key, but it's been a good time. I've been listening to a ton of Meek Mill, just trying to give my support to the city of Philadelphia. So that's what it's all about. FUKC, and we're hoping for it, right?
Yeah.
I'd love him to get another one, even though, Philadelphia sports fans, I don't like you in basketball whatsoever. You pain me as an existence, but you'll never be Giannis. So I don't know why I'm really talking about it. But yeah, I'm doing pretty good. How are you, Joey?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. Super Bowl. I have to say this about the Super Bowl week. I have never. With the wine stuff. Okay, I've never been. I feel like the championship round was a lot more hype than the Super Bowl. I'm not even gonna lie. I can't fake it. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about the Super Bowl. I really don't even have feelings at it. I want the Eagles to win. Yeah, I don't want the Chiefs to win. That's what it comes down to. It's been kind of interesting hearing Media Road looks so cool. That's one thing I have to say. I would love to do that one day.
Yes,
that would be crazy. Very cool. The interviews everyone gets is super exciting. Shout out to everyone from Mile High Sports down there right now. Nilo, Cody, Sean Schroeder. There's a few people down there. So shout out to all of them. But yeah, it looks super fun. But that's pretty much the takes I have. I feel like it's the least hype I've ever felt for a Super Bowl ever. I'm not... Usually at this time, I just have takes coming out of my brain. This is what I think is going to happen. This is what I think is going to happen. I haven't really thought about it like I wish I had.
Right, exactly. No, from a matchup standpoint, it's going to be a fun game to watch, but it feels like it's going to be either Patrick. I feel like my mindset, and maybe this is terrible because I hope it's going to be a really good game, but I feel like it's going to be almost a blowout or a 2-score victory one way or another. Maybe that's my hot take. I think either we see Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs offense just absolutely dominate and they pull ahead and it's just kind of too much for the Eagles to kind of handle. Or I think we just see that the Eagles personnel is just simply the best unit in the league. And that's kind of all it takes to just be able to keep the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands and maybe take the ball away from him a couple times and just score. So, yeah.
Well, we got a couple people in the chat right now. Shout out to Cal and shout out to Bree. Two awesome people in the chat. Frankie, I have a question, though, about the Super Bowl. Before we're going to talk about safeties. This is the Let's Talk Draft podcast. Okay. We will get into it. But do you have, a bold Super Bowl take or anything going on there? Or is the hype just not there for you?
What's my bold Super Bowl take?
Off the top.
How about this? I think Isaiah Pacheco is going to, go for, maybe Isaiah Pacheco is going to have, a 40-plus yard run, 50-plus yard run. I love Isaiah Pacheco. He was one of my guys last year, so seeing him pop off this year has been not very fun. That entire Chiefs rookie class, as much as I hate to admit it, has been absolutely stellar to watch.
Can I say Trent McDuffie was my guy?
Yeah, I love you some Trent.
He was my guy. I love Trent McDuffie. It sucks seeing. It was really terrible seeing him at the Chiefs. Off topic. When Bree, Zach, and I went to the draft last year, there was a dude walking around in a pre-made Trent McDuffie Cardinals jersey before he ever had been drafted. Do you know how long of a shot that is?
Yeah, I thought you were going to say he nailed it. And I was going to be like, wow, good for this guy. No.
Draft day, yes. But that is something that happened. I guess my bold prediction would be I will go with let's see. I will go with this is tough because I really haven't thought about it. I'm going to go with it is a lower scoring game than people think. That's what I think. I think you think that Pacheco is going to go off. I'll add on to that and say that it's going to be a run heavy game, both sides. A lot of clock chewed up and stuff like that. That's just my instinct there. I really don't have a huge difference either way. But Frankie, you want to get straight into the safety talk?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Let's go straight into it. So I'm going to start off with the player we both really like. And this is a guy. I don't know what that was all about.
We just had
another person join.
Imposter. Yeah.
We just have another person.
Who knows what was just about to happen? That could have gotten wild.
That could have gone crazy.
Yeah, okay.
But let's get into it. Trey Dean from the University of Florida, a big safety, one that moves really, really well. And he was an MVP of the Shrine game, a defensive MVP of the Shrine. Frankie, you were the first one to put me on to Trey Dean, so I'm going to let you have the floor. How do you feel about him?
I really like Trey Dean. Trey Dean got a lot of slack from Florida fans. First of all, I want to point out Florida Gator fans. Relax a little bit, you know? You guys are mean to this guy. I know football fans are mean, but you guys are brutal to this player. Trey Dean made some mistakes, made some lapses in deep coverage this year. He comes up a little bit and bites on plays and then gets beat over the top. It happened like probably once a game over like a 5-week span. He got benched a couple times throughout the year. It happened, you know, whatever. This was also, I think, his first year playing full safety. Maybe it was second year. He started his career as a corner at Florida, and you can see that in his skills. He's so good at manning up on tight ends. He's a player, I think, when you talk about a guy who can play in that like star or rover position that the Fangio defense loves to have, kind of that safety that's going to be playing more like in the box, kind of playing as that nickel position. He's just the perfect build to be able to do that. You see his movement skills translate so well. He's willing to come down and hill and make hits. And as you said, he made a big play in the Shrine game and really turned some heads. He's got great movement ability and plays the ball well in the air. He looks like a corner playing safety. I think he's a guy that you can teach to get better at safety, and you can kind of see a lot of those mistakes get cleaned up. Yeah, he's a guy I really liked it a lot. What are some of your favorite things about him?
So he is a former corner. He actually got like playing time as a corner as a freshman. Mm-hmm. So that's impressive. Like people thought he was a star in the making at that time. Now moved to safety, but when you do see him lined up in that nickel safety role where he is guarding the slot receiver a lot of the time, he has flashes of really good off man or off zone technique. Like that's something you see from him that's impressive. It's like, oh, he is a former corner. And especially at 6'3", that's what makes it all kind of really impressive. His ability to stop and start is really good. His ability to change directions is really good. Stuff like that at 6'3". Now, I will say he is really raw, very raw. He's gotten better year after year, but it hasn't been big enough jumps to where I'm like, oh, yeah, he's a first-round caliber player or anything like that. To me, this is a late day 2, early day 3 player that I really like, especially if it is under 8. Sean Desai, who is a DB guru. Mm-hmm. He was a guy that, you know, I saw, what was his name? A prominent Seattle reporter said this, and I'm forgetting his name. It's slipping me, but I tweeted it out. So if you want to see that, you can go to my Twitter. But
plug.
Yeah, exactly. But he noted that Pete Carroll trusted Bryant and Woolen to start there a lot because of Desai's ability to develop. You know, this is a DB guru, and I think that a lot of the time, especially with a Christian Parker, taking risks on a big, fast, really freaky athlete like a Trey Dean, who has also shown flashes of good, is how I would say. Make that valuable and trust him to be able to develop a guy like this. That's kind of my overall thoughts on Trey Dean. Do you have anything else to add there? Do you think he is a do you like him in that nickel safety role mostly, or do you think he can play that split safety?
I don't think so I don't think he's necessarily a guy that you want to put there, but I think he can learn to be able to do it. You know, this is a guy who played 3,000 snaps at Florida at a lot of different positions. He basically played the entire secondary for Florida. And, you know, I'm not going to say he did it at an elite level, but he clearly was trusted by the coaches there. One thing that was a bit of a concern this year is he had like a 15.8% missed tackle rate. He was kind of missing tackles a little bit. He was taking poor angles, but I think a big thing is you saw that as that was a big jump from his previous years. You know, this is a guy who's been able to come downhill and make plays like in the run game regardless. So I think he is a guy that, like you're saying, if they go the route that I think the Broncos are going to be going, where they go with like a Chris Richard, or they go with a Sean Desai, a real DB oriented defensive coach, they're going to be good to go if they take one of these big athletic prospects like a Trey Dean. I'm a big Trey Dean supporter. Keep him in blue and orange, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, keep him in blue and orange. I like that. And he has flashed ability to have deep range as a safety.
Mm.
I think it's just the mental processing. What's in front of him? What's going on?
He gets
Passing
jumpy.
certain
He
people off.
triggers downhill a bit too early sometimes, and I mean he'll just get beat over the top. It happened a decent bit this year, and
totally. It definitely did, and that's kind of what's holding him back from being able to be a consistent player. Right now, as it stands, he is the best in the nickel to me role. And Frankie also said that. 100%. Do you have anything else to add on Trey Dean, or are we good to move on to the next game?
He did really well on Darnell Washington. So Broncos fans, they're always saying they need a guy to cover Travis Kelce or whoever.
Right.
This is probably the guy.
That's right. It. And this is a 6'3", 207-pound safety. It's a big boy. It's a big guy. And that's what makes the redirection stuff so impressive. The longer guys get, the taller guys get, honestly, they usually go down and change a direction.
And
stuff
cool
like
he's
that.
Not the only guy like that in this class. There's actually a few bigger guys. Like if there was ever a year to find like a tight end stopper, quote unquote, like this is a good year for it.
There you go. Let's move on to Brandon Joseph. This was a guy that I was a big fan of, Frankie, early on, especially before he transferred to Notre Dame. When he was at Northwestern, he was really good. And I watched a ton of him because I was a huge Greg Newsome fan who also came out of Northwestern and watched a ton of him. He then ended up transferring to Notre Dame, and he's a really good college player, and I think he's extremely intelligent. I sometimes worry about his physical tools, how big he is, how strong he is, how fast he is. All those things are average to below average. I'm going to be honest. That is what it is. Now, he is extremely intelligent player. Stands out to me. Extremely intelligent player. And his ball skills are amazing. I saw that especially when you go back and look at the Northwestern film. Yep. Man, was he going and high pointing the football. There was one play against Ohio State where it was a fade route. One hand, top of it, comes down with it. Like, this is the type of guy you're getting there. It's just, I think ideally he would be like a single high safety, I think. And I wonder if he is fast enough or rangy enough to be able to get that role done. That's like my big thing there. And then also, like, is he a good enough tackler? Also, I think his technique's okay, but I think that the physical tools kind of limit him. That's kind of my thing with him. Frankie, how do you feel about Brandon Johnson? Do you agree with me?
I completely agree, man. I mean, that redshirt sophomore season you're talking about at Northwestern, he was just so fun to watch with the ball in the air. But as you said, he really struggles when it comes to making tackles. I believe in 2021 he had 20 missed tackles or something. He's just like, he's not a guy you really trust as like your last line of defense when a guy's coming at him downhill. But I think he is a guy that you can trust when the ball's in the air to make a play on it. Now, when it comes to his production at playing like as a single high versus like being able to move around a bit, it's interesting because I'd say this year he was a bit more consistent on a play basis, playing as more of that single high at Notre Dame. But we didn't see a lot of the production and the ball in the air. You know, he was able to get a lot more of the interceptions, I'd say, being moved around and getting to play in the box or getting to play as that like sub linebacker role at Northwestern. I know so many of the interceptions I watched, like you said, he's such an instinctive player that I feel like having him over the middle, being able to watch a quarterback's eyes, kind of read out those crossing patterns and you know, bait where the ball is going to be able to go. He's really talented at that. So it's
intelligence. He sees
he's a very intelligent player.
Him, his football IQ and he's one of those guys that I feel like I can tell, like he's watching film. He knows what's going on and he's super instinctual. You said it. But carry on. I just wanted to add that real quick.
You're completely right. It's interesting because where do you put a guy who you trust to play the pass game, like in the box or down low, or, you know, kind of at that, like within 10 yards range kind of thing, but you don't trust him to play in the run. And you're kind of worried about him as a tackler. If say he, you know, there's a screen or something, you don't necessarily want him coming downhill because he does have a history of missing a lot of tackles. So he is a very interesting prospect. I think a little bit polarizing. I think he's a little bit scheme dependent. I think he is kind of a guy that you'll see more played in that like cover 3 tree, you know, like a lot more of that like Dan Quinn type stuff that like teams don't necessarily play too much of anymore. Like, I don't think he's a guy that we're going to see every single team fall in love with.
Interesting. That's an interesting take there. I like it. I do like it. Now, I do have to say this is my type of player. It really is. Like, I have something for those instinctual DBs that are just seeing like I feel like Washington's had a run of those type of guys. Like I was a huge Elijah Molden fan. That was my type of guy. Those super instinctual. Now, what also those guys had that Brandon Johnson kind of lacks is the tackling ability. All those guys I'm thinking of have played big. They all played big. So that he kind of lacks that, but watching him and seeing him decipher what's in front of him and how savvy he is at it was something I absolutely loved about Brandon Johnson. And honestly, he was a good player in college. He was a great Notre Dame player. It's just about, can he put that skill set to the next level? And that's where you kind of have questions, because you're talking about bigger, stronger athletes there. And does his game hold up? Does it hold up? That's something that it's a big question. It's a big question. Sometimes you see it happen. Tyrann Mathieu was a guy that got terrible testing scores. Tiny, couldn't run fast. He wasn't strong. Had a really good NFL career, but the majority of the time, not as good. Those testing results, especially at DB, definitely matter, and I'm worried about it there. I think right now he's going to be mocked, in a reasonable range where I think his film indicates. Now, when the combine comes around, I think it could drop. I really do, because I don't think he's going to blow you away in any one aspect. That's fair. Really don't. I really, really don't. But again, I like Brandon Johnson. I do. Where do you feel like you would be comfortable drafting a Brandon Johnson, Frankie?
It's almost too bad, because I don't want to say too bad. Honestly, probably outside, maybe top 150, probably that 100 to 150 range. Yeah, I'm not trying to
That's not that low. That really is.
Yeah, I'd say is a 4th, 5th round grade for me. I don't think he's going to be a guy that blows you away, but I don't think he's a guy that's going to go undrafted. I think he's super talented. He's been productive, and I predict him to be productive in the NFL. I just think, especially when I look at the safety class around him, and when I look at how the NFL values a lot of these guys, I don't think there's going to be, 10 safeties taken in the first, 2-3 rounds. Maybe that's a little low. I just don't think that's going to happen. And I don't know if he is that 9th, 10th safety. There's a lot of decent safeties this year. And I think a lot of them fill roles better than Brandon Johnson does.
So you have a 4th, 5th round on him. Yeah. I would go late 3rd, 4th.
Okay.
Type thing on him. So we're in the same ballpark there.
Where would you have Trey Dean? Because I think Trey Dean is a 3rd round pick. I think he is a guy that you can I like Trey Dean that much.
We're talking about such different players here. That's really tough.
I know.
But that's physical tools galore. Even different roles that I think.
And I guess this is a good way to point out, guys, safety in today's NFL is so.
It's broad. DB, what does that even mean?
It's just DB at this point. There's no you see these guys lined up all over the place. Justin Simmons is such a good example, as Broncos fans know. This is a guy that really does everything, and he gets used in so many different ways. You see him get lined up on tight ends. You see him get lined up on slot receivers. You see him playing deep. You see him playing low. You see him doing literally it all. And that's what you need a lot of these safeties to be able to do. And a lot of these guys are maybe really good in one of these traits, but they're lacking in maybe a couple of these other traits. And that's kind of what a lot of the game is,
You're totally right on that, Frankie. Safety, we don't even know what that means anymore. There's not a safety. That could mean 3 different things almost. In the new era Vic Fangio scheme, the safety, there's not a strong safety. There's not a free safety. You could throw that away. There's no such thing. They share similar skill sets. That doesn't matter. And then now safeties are walking up and playing nickel. What does it mean? I don't know. It just got, some guys are Daxton Hill was a great example of this. He was DB. He was not safety. That man was DB. Yep. He could play anywhere. But yeah, I just wanted to agree with you there.
Yeah.
Boggins is in the chat. Shout out to Boggins.
What up, Boggins?
And he says, I miss you guys. Talk Skinner yet?
We have not talked Skinner.
We haven't talked Skinner yet, and I think that's a good one to get right into because, Frankie, I think you had some thoughts on Skinner. I haven't watched Skinner yet, so I'm going to try you a little bit.
Watched a couple of games.
Okay. Give me your general thoughts on
the Senior Bowl. So Skinner's really physical. Skinner is the guy that, like, if you want a big hitter, you want a guy that's going to put some guys on their butts, and a guy who's going to maybe instill a little bit of physicality in the entirety of your defense. Bring some attitude. That's JL Skinner. He brings that attitude. He's about that action. He knocks dudes down. I watched this dude at the Senior Bowl last week, and again, these are not like hitting practices. These are not like, these guys aren't wearing full pads, you know, like they're padded, but they're not like, you're not wearing leg pads and not like taking each other out. JL Skinner knocked over like 3 dudes just because he clearly was playing with so much fire, and he's just flying around and he's trying to play press, but he's just so big, long, and strong that he just shoves dudes over left and right. And it's absolutely hilarious. I love JL Skinner. He had so many highlight hits playing at Boise State. He's another guy that's like, I think he's like 6'4", like 215, maybe like 6'3". Measurements will be really fun for him. Yeah. JL Skinner is absolutely awesome. Really fun player. Another guy who, like, you know, maybe he'll stay in that blue and orange, but I think he might end up going a little bit early. I think he's going to end up being a day 2 or like a round 2 pick. JL Skinner, incredibly talented safety who I like a lot.
Frankie, what type of safety do you think he is? Do you think he's a 2-high safety, a single high safety, in the box safety, and
He'll probably primarily play in the box. But I don't know. I think he's really someone that, you, again, playing at Boise State, they really kind of let him do a lot. So I like JL Skinner really to kind of do whatever.
You just project him there. That's what your favorite
projection. Because I think like
that.
He's just the kind of personality I think you want on your defense. You know, like he clearly like he just brings a lot of heart and passion onto the field, and that's kind of what you want to see. But then from a physical standpoint, he's just a physical monstrosity, and he's super strong.
Shout out to Colton Cooper. He also joins. He says, I was curious if you talked about him and Jamie Robinson yet. Well, I don't think we have any notes on Jamie Robinson. I haven't watched Jamie Robinson. Have you watched Jamie Robinson yet?
Jamie Robinson's another guy who looked pretty good at the Senior Bowl, but no, I don't have a lot of Florida State tape this year. But yeah, I have not gotten to watch too much Jamie Robinson. But guy who won Senior Bowl Safety of the Week last week, along with JL Skinner, he was on the opposite team. But yeah, seems like another guy. I want to say he's a little bit smaller. I want to say he's like 5'10", 5'11". I want to say he also plays. I've seen a couple of just like highlight hits of his like on Twitter. It seems like he comes downhill pretty well. But yeah, I'm not gonna like give an overall like statement on Jamie Robinson because I haven't given him too much of a look, but seems to be a talented guy who's made a good name for himself so far through the draft process.
For sure. And shout out to Colton Cooper. Shout out to Coop in the chat. Big appreciate you, man. And then we're going to move on to a different safety here. Let's go into Christopher Smith. Frankie, what are your thoughts on Christopher Smith? And like, what is your, I guess, and give me your thoughts on what fit do you think he plays? Because, you know, we did have the conversation of safety could mean 1,000 things in today's world. And if you're running a specific defense, sometimes these safeties just don't fit all the needs of these defenses. So what do you think he does well, and does he fit a Broncos defense that I anticipate being a Sean Desai, Vic Fangio scheme type?
So it's interesting because after the Oregon game this year, I thought Christopher Smith was going to be like one of my guys. He looked so incredible in that game. I want to say he came away with he came away with at least a takeaway, but he just looked so good in coverage. He was making a lot of really clean tackles. He's a very good leader on that defense. You know, he's very well respected in that locker room, which is, you know, it's the Georgia defense. You know, everybody really likes this guy, but I'll be completely honest, man. Christopher Smith missed a ton of tackles this year. He's a little bit on the smaller side. And after the first game of the season, I was thinking to myself, like, man, this guy kind of reminds me of Kareem Jackson. Like, he knows how to hit for a little guy, and that is one of those things that I always really like. You know, like it's really cool seeing those guys who are able to get low on these super big defender or really big running backs and be able to take them out still, be able to rip the ball away, be able to break through blocks and kind of make plays on screens. But you just didn't really see that too much this year. I really wasn't too like overly impressed with Christopher Smith as much as I really hoped I would be. I think he does offer you the flexibility that he's kind of a jack of all trades. But I think he is kind of the definition of the phrase jack of all trades, master of none. I don't really see him having really an elite trade I'd say you can bank home on. And I'm really not trying to knock the guy because he is a talented player who plays he's got a lot of high pedigree. I believe he was an all SEC first team. He was a finalist for the Bronco Nagurski Award. But I don't know. When I watched Christopher Smith, I just wasn't overly impressed. I don't like a lot of the angles he takes on tackles. And I mean, He's sadly, I think, compared to this class where you have a lot of these physical specimens that maybe my eyes are just a bit more drawn to, and that's maybe just a problem with me. I didn't instantly fall in love with Christopher Smith like I hoped I would. Did you end up getting to watch him? What were your thoughts?
I didn't give a huge look at Christopher Smith yet, which is sad. I've watched a ton of Georgia, but I haven't really focused in on Christopher Smith. But I thought some of the points you made were interesting. I did. I don't know. What round do you think you would draft a guy like this? If you are you a bigger fan of our Notre Dame safety, the guy I really like, or are you a bigger fan of our Georgia safety?
Probably the Georgia safety. I like because really? I do see what like so I called him that. I think I see a defined role for what Christopher Smith can be, whereas like Brandon Joseph, I guess I'm a little bit more confused about. Mm-hmm. But I just don't know. Like I think the ceiling for a guy like Joseph is a bit higher than a guy like Smith.
Okay, I get that. Cal chimes in. He says, "I know this is safeties talk, but what do you guys think of Ibrahim? What did you remember Ibrahim? I think we already had this conversation, or is this the wrong one?
Who is Aldous Ibrahim?
Okay,
is that like Muhammad Ibrahim? I don't know who this is.
I don't know. We haven't watched him yet, Kyle. Let us know in the chat. Tell us about him, and we'll get on it. Hey, if anybody in the chat has any players that they want to send our way in specific that they'd like us to watch, send it in our DMs. That would be like a fun little segment, and then we could bring it. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud here. We could bring it by the person and be like, "We checked out this player for you."
Just live throwing in thoughts. We're getting it.
Yeah, I kind of like that idea. I kind of like that. Cal says
I made him up. I was gonna say like, this guy isn't real. I was like, is Cal playing like the Hogwarts game, the new Harry Potter game, and this is just like the name of his like Hufflepuff character?
I'm so bad with first names. I thought this was the Minnesota running back.
Dude, I was like, his name's Muhammad Ibrahim, dude. Like,
I thought that was man, the Minnesota
like,
running back.
We're gonna get taken off the air with this, Joey. Jeez. So Christopher Smith. He was another guy who was also at the Senior Bowl, and he was one of the few guys I saw that was getting consistently like kind of bullied off the ball with his size. He was really having to fight for his life, and really he had to commit a couple holds just because he had to. But I will say, like, I don't know. It's not the end of the world to have a guy who knows when he needs to grab, because it's not like he's giving up super big plays after the catch, but right. He is small and undersized, and he will get bullied off the ball when put in some situations.
Well, yes, and that exactly.
Like you're not going to man him up on a fucking here.
Like Christopher Smith, small too. I saw he was listed at like 195. Frankie says 1,000%, and yes, he is a smaller guy. Frankie, I think you mentioned before, like you kind of liked him at the beginning, and then you faded off because of size. Yeah. Right? So I there you go. Let's move on to our next safety here, and we are talking about Penn State's Jair Brown. I kind of liked him. I kind of did. I went back and forth. I really liked his frame. He's stocky, 5'10", so smaller, but he's 210 pounds. He's a stocky guy. And he has a lot of physical tools that, like he was on the freak list. He was on the freak list at one point. I do think, though, that it doesn't really show up on film like I'd like it to. To me, this is a guy that was asked to play safety in a lot of different ways. We talked about how that means different things. He was a guy that would play single high sometimes. He would play two shell. He would be asked to do a lot of different things. So, Frankie, I'm curious what your thoughts are on Jair Brown here.
So, I actually didn't get to watch too much Jair Brown, but from what I remember, that he was a guy that I enjoyed him probably more than I liked a lot of these other safety prospects when it came to playing deep. I thought he made decent jumps on like angles on passes, when he had to go make like a deep breakup. But like you said, I don't think that the explosiveness necessarily showed on tape as much as you would have liked it to. I didn't see him make too many mistakes, so I wouldn't say like, I don't know. He seemed like he wasn't a super mistake prone player, but
I only got to watch like one ton of college production. A ton of college production. That's one thing for sure. He had a nose for the ball. Where the ball was, Jair Brown was. Like that's just something that was redundant. He had a lot of college tackles, picks. His 2021 season in particular was absurd on the stat sheet. But carry on, Frankie.
No, that's totally good. I was going to ask us, so where do you feel most comfortable seeing him line up?
Where do I see him? I like him in a too high system because I like him starting deep and coming downhill fast. That's kind of how I like him. He's not one thing that kind of frustrated me is so on the freak list, he reportedly ran a 4.44 40, which would be really impressive, especially at the safety position. You like seeing that stuff. That deep, rangy stuff is what you hear when you start thinking of that fast 40 time. But it's kind of a build-up speed, and I kind of like him in attack. I like him starting deeper and coming downhill. When he's coming downhill, you see a lot of explosiveness from him, which I like. That's kind of the role because it doesn't like there's certain safeties that I like in a single high system because, they may lack in some areas, but they're elite in others or whatever the case may be, or a box safety the same way. I like him in the box. This is a player that is good at a lot, but not elite at anything. Like he's in that good to below average range that checks every box for me. But I don't look at him as a player that blows me away in any single area. So I kind of like him doing a little of everything. And that's why I would say in that too high system in particular. Do you have a thought there?
No, not really too much. I think I pretty much agree. It seems like he's kind of better suited to be playing deep most of the time.
Yeah, that's the way I like him, and I do like him coming downhill. That's one thing I want. So and he has solid ball skills too. I think it was the 2021 season he had 5 picks or 6 picks. It was ball skills really, really impressed me. He understands what's going on in front of him really well. One thing that kind of frustrated me is his pursuit angles. He gets too aggressive on sometimes. So people will outrun his pursuit ankles. Even though he's fast, I don't really love his hips. So he's like a player I go back and forth on. I'm not feeling strong about him in any given way, but I do enjoy his game. And I think that with a good combine, like I think he is going to have, just based off of things I've read, he's going to probably jump up a little higher than people probably think. I will say that.
How does he do taking on blocks? Is he pretty good at taking on blocks? Like for a guy like 5'10"?
No. Like no, not at all. No.
Not even close.
I really wish, because he does have a build to be like, he's 5'11", 210. He's a stocky dude. He has a build where I want him to get more aggressive on blocks, come down, maybe at least just punch somebody in the face, but he's a runaround guy, which kind of frustrates me sometimes. But yeah. Let's move on to our next one here, Frankie. This is a guy that you watched, Antonio Johnson out of Texas A&M. What are your thoughts on him? I know he's a bigger guy, correct?
Yeah, so he's another guy, guys, like another 6'3", 200-pound plus guy. Right. The guy you're going to see be willing to be put all over the place, primarily in that like nickel star role, but I think can kind of play everywhere, kind of in that Justin Simmons build. And I mean, this is another guy, hits big, plays the ball well in the air. He had a couple of really good pass breakups where he's playing the ball through players' hands throughout the season. And I mean, this is just an awesome player, guys. I think this is going to be a player that ends up being a top 50 player. Really good run stopper. He'll probably be either him or Brian Branch are going to be vying for that number 1 spot. It kind of depends upon what you consider Brian Branch, because he's kind of another, like, I'd say Hamilton-ish prospect where he's going to just have to have a defined role. But if you know what that role is going to be, he's going to be really good at it. Right. Antonio Johnson is just super duper talented, has the size and the ability to do whatever you want him to do. And I mean, yeah, this is just a super good prospect right here.
I'm going to ask you the same thing as I asked the other guys. I constantly see he's a versatile defender. Do you agree with that, one? Yep. And then 2, versatility is good in a lot of ways, but sometimes it's to a detriment of players. Like like Isaiah Simmons, for example, right? Everyone liked to throw around. I was a critic of Isaiah Simmons at the time. I was, for how freaky and athletic he was, and everyone wants to talk about all the different positions he played. I felt like he didn't have one position that he was good at. He was just like all over the place. I worried about him in every individual in its own way. What do you think best fits Antonio Johnson?
Like I said, if you can have Johnson playing that like star role in the Fangio defense, oh my God. But you like him playing that rover position, being able to move around, whether it's, lining up on tight ends, lining up over slot receivers, maybe dropping deep every once in a while if you need him to be, but just kind of being around the ball, being around like the middle of the field and just kind of making plays happen. He's so relentless in the way he plays. You know, that was one of the main things I wrote down, whether it's fighting through blocks, whether it's like, you know, chasing down drag routes like all the way across the field and then having to break back across the field and making a play on the entire opposite hash. Like this guy just keeps going. You know, Antonio Johnson is a player that I just really enjoyed watching thoroughly. And I mean, when we talk about these other guys that I don't think thrives in any area, Antonio Johnson's effort and instincts are where he thrives. And it's when you see those two things just like constantly happening over and over again, no matter the competition too, because a big thing, like this was an all SEC player. He was all SEC second team. Like this is a talented guy playing against talented competition and a talented conference. You know, like this is a really good player that I think a lot of guys are going to be, you know, impressed with because he's got the size and the skill and the desire to be very, very good. And I think he's only going to get better going to the pros. He's kind of one of those guys that I think is going to be better in the NFL than he was at the college level. And he was already very good at the college level.
Well, I'm really excited to watch him because of that, Frankie. All the stuff you said, especially the processing, it's hard to find those bigger guys that have the really good processing in both the run and the pass, right? Like that's something that I constantly see people rave about Antonio Johnson with. I have seen what is his true position? Now, you say that you like him closer. You like him closer to the line. You like him using his athleticism and his tackling and his physicality, right? That's kind of what I picked up there. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
No, 100%. Yep. No, I mean, he works through players. That's the best way to put it.
Perfect. Well, let's go on a little bit of a show break here. I want to talk about Weinsteffen, the oldest brewery in the world. 1040. It started in 1040. 1040. I can't wrap my brain around it. 1040 is crazy.
1040.
I had the luxury of going to visit it, and they do have that old 1040 place still kind of set up. Like you get to go where they did it. And there's a cool story behind it. They were doing it to preserve water, and I don't know. It really didn't work. They ended up making beer out of it. So the oldest brewery in the world. It's the number one German wheat-style beer in the USA. It's 5.4% alcohol ABV. You're going to get haziness, fruity. It's an effervescent beer. It's a really good beer. I actually really enjoy it. I am drinking it right now. It's awesome. It's the highest rated German wheat beer available in the United States. Absolutely go out there and buy it. And this is the Weinsteffen Hefeweiss beer. That's the one I'm drinking. They come out with a lot of different ones. The original lager is also really good. They just have really good beer. I really, really think so. They teach people how to make beer there, matter of fact. That is a fact. You know, some of your favorite breweries were taught by Weinsteffen, believe it or not. That's the thing. They do everything consistent. Some of those German beer laws are insane. If you knew exactly, you have to only do certain ingredients with beer to be a traditional German beer, and Weinsteffen follows all those laws. Still comes out with this product. So go out there and definitely drink Weinsteffen.
Yeah, let me just say, I've had my first Weinsteffen today. It's been absolutely delicious. I had to go to my local beer mart, if you will, and ask them to direct me to the oldest brewery in the world. And they said, "How old is it?" They didn't say that, but they said, "How old is it?" And I said, "It's been around since 1040, buddy." 1040. And he said, "I'm gonna have to have one later." And I said,
"You don't know the oldest brewery in the world, bro?
You don't know the oldest brewery?" I said, "It's delicious. You can taste the wheat. You can taste the flavors. It's delicious.
It is delicious.
Have one today. Hard to say, easy to drink."
Hard to say, easy to drink. I'm glad you said it because I was going to say it. Yeah. So let's go straight off that into our next safety. Frankie, Brian Branch. You mentioned him earlier. This is like hot ones. I'm asking you questions right off the sip of beer. Brian Branch, you mentioned him earlier as being in conversation as the best safety in the class. What do you think of Brian Branch? And I have questions about where I would draft him, so I'm curious. And I haven't watched enough to have that conclusion. I'm just like, I've watched 2 games, and I feel like I don't like him. So, Frankie, what are your opinions on Brian Branch? And then I also want to know somewhere in there where you would feel comfortable drafting this guy.
So last year, for anyone who was following along with Frankie's film, Jalen Petrie was my guy. But the whole time I was like, people were calling Jalen Petrie a safety, and I was like, so everyone knows though that this guy like doesn't really like, he plays nickel corner, and he plays like he doesn't really do that, but like he was still considered a safety, whatever. So Brian Branch is like if Jalen Petrie was like 5% better. Brian Branch is so effing good. This guy does not miss tackles. This guy was an elite defender on the Alabama defense. This guy was the star of the Alabama defense. You know, he might not. They didn't ask him to play deep. I'm sure, you know, he could probably do it if they wanted to. They just had guys that were capable of doing it anyways. Jordan Battle is a fine safety prospect if you want him. Brian Branch is so effing good. He's sticky in man coverage. He was locking dudes up over the middle. Again, this guy missed 3 tackles the entire season, and he led all DBs in run stops with like 43, which are plays that go for, I believe, under 2 yards, whether it's a screen or whether it's a run, according to PFF. This guy was just all over the ball, guys. Like I have no other way to say it. Brian Branch is an elite prospect. I've learned my lesson, and I want to show growth as Frankie because I recognize something. A couple of years ago, let me tell some stories of a novice friend.
Frankie's about to show growth, everybody.
A couple of years ago, Patrick Surtain, I'm sitting here, I'm like, man, I'm bored. I'm watching this film, I'm bored. This guy's he's just doing everything right. This is boring. And that year, I ranked Patrick Surtain as my number 2 corner behind J.C. Horn, which maybe will still end up being right.
He was my number 2 corner too, but under a different person.
Anyways,
even a little more outrageous. I want to add
Newsome game, but this year I told that part of my brain that was saying this guy's boring. I was like, hush up, let me keep watching this guy because you know what, you're being annoying right now. And you know what I realized? Boring's perfectly good. You know what? When you're watching a guy be boring because he's just making all the right decisions, you never see him in the wrong position. He's not missing tackles. You're never making notes because you think, oh man, this guy's making a bunch of mistakes. The good plays you see all the time, and you're making good things. Guys, this is a good player right here. This guy might bore you because his tape is just so like technically sound, and he's just Brian Branch is a very, very talented piece, guys. I think he's going to be a first-round player because this draft class is weak. But I said the same thing about Petrie last year, and here's what I'm telling you guys right now. Like people were looking at like guys like Hamilton and Petrie last year, like I don't know, like not necessarily like where are you going to put these guys or like what are they going to be at the next level. Petrie was damn near the DPOY this year, guys. Like this is going to be a productive player in the league, whether it's in the run or against the pass. I trust him to be able to lock up tight ends. He's got decent size. I think he's like 6'0", 200. Like he's fine. Brian Branch is a talented player, guys. Talented player.
There you go. Hey, I'm going to have to watch more of Brian Branch. So do you think he is the best safety in this class then? Because you kind of gave Antonio Johnson also that.
It's very tough to determine best safety because, again, what is a safety? Like, you're not going to be – I don't think teams are going to put Brian Branch
Okay, here's my follow-up. I have a follow-up for you. We both have gone on here saying that all the safety – like, safety is such a broad
who do I think is going to go first?
NFL. Who even knows what that position
Yep.
When you say safety, what does that mean? Because it literally could mean like 5 different things. What type of safety do you think is the most valuable?
This is going to be a really cheat out answer, one that can do it all.
Oh, you are cheated.
That's a total cheat answer. I don't know, man. Like in today's league, it's so hard because like.
Okay, I have an answer, but
what's your answer? Let me hear your answer.
I still think that single high safety is the most valuable. Now, as much teams that need them, not as much. But an elite single high safety is almost impossible to find. You don't see those Ed Reeds that go sideline to sideline on your back end anymore. It's rare to find those guys. And when you do, it's such a luxury. You don't, they're like, the reason a lot of that defense isn't like the too high system is what it is. You don't have those single high safeties that are going sideline to sideline. You really don't. You don't have those guys. Like name a few that are elite at that in today's NFL. There's just not a ton. So if you were
the ones who are, they're kind of devalued.
What was that?
You look at the few who are, and they're kind of devalued for no reason by the the more. I don't want to say the more casuals, but some of the more casual fans in the league, I'd say, like some of the like Justin Simmons around the league that kind of don't get recognized for the impact that they have. Not that he's like a pure single high.
Right. But exactly. So what is the Browns safety that couldn't tackle and he's from LSU and he was
Delpit?
Delpit was an example of the NFL seeing a guy that could be a single high safety and being like, I don't care about this tackling issue. I don't care about the injuries. He has elite side to sideline ability, so we're gonna draft him earlier. Like, I don't care, because that is hard to find. So I still think that is probably the most valuable. Now, I also agree with you, Frankie, being well rounded, because the NFL is going into the two shell
your
defense
safeties to be
where
able to
you
play
need your
man
guys
now.
being able to do a little of everything.
Yeah, with what tight ends now are in the game, like you need a guy that can be able to cover, like on people, like, and you need a guy that can get their hands on people too.
Mm-hmm.
Disrupt
you
some
need
of
a
these
guy
bigger
that's going to
routes.
run fit. You really do. Like, especially in the single high system, those safeties have to make a quick decision and come down fast. They have to be explosive and come down fast, hit that right pursuit angle and all of that. So doing a little bit of everything is still super valuable. It's just like, I don't know. How valuable do you think safety is in general? Like, do you think it's above linebacker, running back? Do you think it is?
I mean, it's above, I'd say, like off-ball linebacker and maybe running back. It's probably like tied with running back, honestly, in my opinion, because I think that like there's a lot of like, I don't know. I think that's a really hard. It's tough. It's tough.
It is tough. It is tough because it kind of depends, right?
Yeah, it really
kind of depends what type of guy you're getting. I will say something that I take notice of every year is that it feels like the free agency pool always has guys that I kind of like.
I think that's kind of what I mean. It feels easier to replace. I mean, look, like this year, like Jesse Bates, I think last year was a guy who I didn't think was ever going to hit the free agency block, but it seems like this year he's going to be kind of good to go, and they're just comfortable kind of looking to get these younger guys. And I think that's kind of the interesting thing about it is, I mean, and you look at a class like this year, it kind of like, it's kind of factoring into that where it's like, oh man, like you really can kind of find some of these other guys.
You can. You definitely can. Well, Frankie, I think we went through our whole list, correct? I don't think we have any more safeties here. So, do you have any final words for today? Anything you want to add on about the safety class as a whole, maybe? Have you watched any more guys than these? And what are your opinion on like the top of the class just in general?
So I've watched Jordan Battle. I watched Ronnie Hickman. I don't like Ronnie Hickman.
What did you think about Jordan Battle?
Battle's like, I don't know. He's kind of what you're talking about where you want like a single high safety, but he just doesn't, I don't think he has the athleticism to really be talented. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh man. Sorry, Jordan.
I don't think
but maybe you never know.
I don't.
I don't know. The safety class is all right this year. I'd say it's a pretty it's a better group, I think, than the past couple years as far as a depth perspective. But I don't know if there's as many like guys I'd say are like top 50, top like first round guys that I'm really interested in.
Not a Kyle Hamilton in this class, right?
No, I'd say I don't know. I mean, you could say like I think Brian Branch kind of is that level of player.
You think he's as good as Kyle Hamilton was coming out?
Yeah. I think, yeah.
Okay, I need to watch more Brian Branch. Kyle Hamilton, I thought, was an absolute stud.
Brian Branch is consistent.
I loved Kyle Hamilton.
I know. But like, yeah. I think Brian Branch is really, 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 really good. I think the safety class is fine. I think Brian Branch is going to end up being like a top 25 pick, maybe like a top 32 pick. But I also thought the same thing about Jalen Petrie last year, and he ended up going like 40th. So,
well, cool. Any final words? Where can they find your work, Frankie? That's the main point here. Where
Frankie's Film on Twitter. Frankie's Film on Twitter. You know, I'm tweeting out the tweets. Over on TikTok. A lot of film. Frankie's Film NFL. Put my film up over there as well. FrankiesFilm.com. Putting out some articles coming soon. I'm going to try to put out like some draft prospect articles and stuff over there. And then, Joey, where they find, and then obviously every Thursday over here on Let's Talk Broncos, Let's Talk Draft. Guys, come follow, like, subscribe, watch us whenever you can, wherever you can. Make multiple accounts. Retweet this. Show it to your friends. Show it to your family. Interrupt a family dinner and show it to everybody. Show it to your coworkers.
Whether you guys are in here via YouTube, Facebook, whatever the form may be, go follow and subscribe to the Let's Talk Broncos.
We appreciate it.
We do. That is our number one thing we're trying to push right now. We got word that the YouTube views are more important than all the other ones. So please go subscribe to the Let's Talk Broncos YouTube. Big deal. Please, we would appreciate it. Other than that, everyone, please go follow me at JR Drafts. I have an article coming out very soon. I started on it tonight. I'm writing an interior defensive line piece. I think it's super interesting because so much of it rotates around Draymond Jones. And he did put out a little bit of a tweet tonight saying, I want to be a Bronco, despite the like tweets of me saying Russell Wilson isn't that I hated Let's Ride. And then also we traded too much for champagne, but he still wants to be a Bronco, he said after that. So I do. It's a mixed bag. It's a wobbler. But
I've totally left the breadcrumbs that I don't want to be here, but I don't know where you guys are getting that I don't want to be here. My
exactly.
bad.
It was one of those ones.
Please
stay,
Draymond. Please stay.
Please stay. We actually, I love Draymond's game. I've been such a big Draymond fan for such a long time.
Dude, but you were I feel like you were the like OG, like Draymond Jones is gonna like blow up this year's Super. Maybe
I loved Draymond Jones ever since he was drafted by Ohio State. I feel like he's had that. He's like, for the people that have played Madden in here, he's like had the Madden path where you draft him as a rookie and he gets like 3 overall better every single season. Like he's had such a clean trajectory, just continually getting better. So I really like Draymond Jones. I mean, it's hard to find interior defensive line pass rushers, and that's something that Draymond Jones is. And I think a lot of next year's how that room looks depends on if Draymond Jones is back or not. I really do.
Yeah.
So
100%.
Yeah. So everyone keep an eye out for that article, please. But until next time, guys, shout out to everyone that was here, and go Broncos.
Thank you guys for watching. Go Broncos.